Let's do our reading for the full moon. So I'm actually recording this a little over a week early, which is like unprecedented for me, but here we are. The Mead moon, and we have cast a spell on the 14th. So first of all, if you did not watch my video on the restarting of at CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, go watch that video, because that is something that I feel like is going to be affecting this energy, since they're just now turning it back on today, July 5th, as I'm recording this. So that is probably something that's going to play into the energy with this full moon, and might be even heightened with the full moon, or they might heighten each other. You know, there's some sort of interplay with that energy. I feel like for sure will be affecting this. It's also sort of an interesting coincidence that this full moon is on the 13th. And once again, to tie back to the Large Hadron Collider video about CERN, this is the first time they're reaching the full power of 13 trillion electron volts of energy to run the machine. So there's that sort of synchronicity with the number 13 with this energy. So I just feel like the turning on of this machine and the full moon on the 13th are sort of harmonizing and coming together to really heighten energies at this time. Okay, let's talk about what I'm feeling psychically. Psychically, with this full moon, and with, once again, the turning on of the Large Hadron Collider, I almost feel like this is a new beginning. It's actually really interesting. Almost this anticipation of what's to come, and anxiousness even of this new beginning, walking down this path. When I say anxiousness, I don't mean that in like a bad, like anxiety. I don't mean it like that. I just mean like this almost restlessness. But once again, that kind of sounds negative. I don't mean it in a negative sense. I mean just this sort of anticipation. I guess, you know, the first way I described it was probably the best way. Because it doesn't feel like anything negative. It just feels like things are ramping up. Things are getting ready to start happening. And that's largely what I feel inside. It's like whenever you were in school, when you're on summer break and then it's about to be the start of the new school year, the first day of school, you know, like the night before, that energy that you feel like you're kind of restless, you're kind of anxious, you're kind of anticipating it, you're kind of excited, but also nervous, like all of that sort of energy. I kind of feel like that right now, going forward to this full moon, going forward to the turning on of the Large Hadron Collider. It doesn't feel as intense as that. Maybe to a lesser degree of sort of that personal intense energy, but it still feels like that similar energy, if that makes sense. It's a little bit more subdued, a little bit less intense, but I still feel that. You know, that's kind of the best way I can describe it. It just feels like a new beginning. It feels like something new is coming, and sort of all of the anticipation that you would have with that. All of the emotional reaction that you would have to that when it's something new. It is, sometimes something new is exciting. Sometimes it's, you know, a little bit scary. Sometimes you're just nervous because you don't know what to expect. So that's kind of what I feel. Like I said, it doesn't feel very intense, but I still feel that energy that something new is coming with this. So that's the best way I can describe it. Let's take a look at the astrology. So you can see that this full moon is happening in Sagittarius, and we have the moon conjunct to Pluto. So very crazy, very intense energy with that. And then we have the sun conjuncting Mercury in Gemini. I feel like that's very positive energy. Very interesting with that. So Sagittarius is the sign of expansion, the sign of growth, the sign of ingenuity, discovering new techniques, new methods, new approaches, new knowledge. Energy of Jupiter and the expansion of consciousness, the expansion of knowledge, that higher education, that higher wisdom as well. It's also an energy of experimentation, of trying new things in order that you discover things. So it's really interesting how this full moon is happening in Sagittarius right when they're restarting up these experiments with CERN. And also with Pluto being present, the energy of life, death, rebirth, right? The restarting of the Large Hadron Collider, the rebirth of that energy, the rebirth of those experiments. It's very much heightened by this full moon, like I was saying. And I did not look at the astrology before I said my psychic part, like always. I always say my psychic perceptions before I look at the astrology. And then, of course, we know that Gemini is the sign of communication, travel, writing, anything like that, transportation, movement, change, because you think of the winds of change as well. Anything also with that sort of connection with other people, because we have the communication with that as well. Communication aspect, connecting to others, situations with other people. So that's where we have the Sun and Mercury. Mercury rules Gemini, and so we have that double Mercury energy, twins. With the Sun there, it's just bringing that energy to the forefront. It's bringing that to our self-expression. This could be a time of a lot of communication going on, a lot of travel going on, a lot of changes, change of residence, getting a new car, things like that could be going on as well. Anything that brings newness to communication or travel could definitely be happening with this energy. And it could also have to do with yourself, your self-expression with the Sun being there. It could be something that you're changing up, that you're doing different, that you're doing new. And that also fits with Sagittarius, with the moon being in Sagittarius. New methods, new techniques, experimentation. So there's this combined energy resonance between the Sun and Mercury and Gemini and the moon and Pluto in Sagittarius. It can almost be as well this major shift, this major transformation, with Pluto being the planet of life, death, and rebirth. Maybe you bring back something that you used to do before, or you step into something that you used to do before. Or it could be something completely new. I mean, it just depends on how these energies manifest in your life personally. But these are the general energies that are going on with this. There's also a lot of magical energy between Sagittarius and Gemini. There's a lot of magical energy with those two signs in particular, because you can think of the planets that rule them. Mercury, Hermes, Thoth, right? Magic, as well as communication and travel. It's also a god that rules over magical power because of the communication aspect of spells, incantations, petitions. A lot of magic has to do with our words, with our voice, with our thoughts, with the mental sphere, which is also ruled by Mercury. So there's a lot of magical energy with that. And then with Sagittarius, we have Jupiter, you know, the king of the gods, right? The expansion, the growth, the development of the spirituality and higher wisdom. So there's a lot of magical energy with that too. And then we also have to consider that Jupiter is the greater fortune in astrology. So it just brings in a lot of good, positive energy as well. And that's going to be more towards the internal aspect. Once again, with the moon being there, this full moon occurring in Sagittarius, with Pluto there, I feel like this is definitely that new beginning that I was talking about. It's a fresh start, a renewal, a rebirth. So once again, that could be bringing something back from the past, or it could be stepping into something completely new. Either way, it's this renewal energy and this expanding energy. Okay, it's a very magical, in particular, the moon and Pluto in Sagittarius is a very magically charged conjunction. Well, with that said, let's go ahead and get into the cards. I'm going to be using the Star Spinner Tarot. I'm going to pull 3 cards from this. And then I will also use the Starseed Oracle. And I'll pull 1 Oracle card for this reading as well. Let's go ahead and get into that. Now I align myself with the Most High God and the Holy Spirit. How could He please communicate the truth to me through these cards so that I may be guided for the highest good of all. Thank you, and so let it be. Please give us your divine guidance for this full moon and for the restarting of the Large Hadron Collider, in particular the full moon conjunct Pluto and Sagittarius, the Sun conjunct Mercury. Is there anything that we need to know or do at this time? Be aware of, practice. Please give us your divine guidance for the highest good of all. Thank you, and so let it be. Not even surprised with the cards that came up with this. First, we have the Five of Wands. The Five of Wands is an energy of a lot going on with other people. So once again, this fits right with the astrology, what I was saying about Gemini. The Five of Wands is a lot of almost hectic energy, even with a lot of people, with the community. This could be your family, your co-workers, whatever people you find yourself surrounded with. This is a lot of energy going on, a lot of movement, a lot of activity. And with that, there can always be a chance for people to start butting heads, people to start getting annoyed with each other, people to start arguing, for conflict to happen. The Five of Wands carries that warning. There could be an energy of fighting and conflict between people. So it's important to be aware of that when the Five of Wands comes up. However, there's also a potentiality for cooperation, working together and collaborating. It all depends on sort of the particular people involved and how volatile the situation really is. But there is a power in your involvement with it. So you can probably de-escalate things if you approach it correctly, if you introduce the right actions, the right communication. There's a high probability that you can actually turn this into a positive energy, get people to work together and things like that, rather than to be in this conflict. You can probably broker peace, at the very least just peace, but at the most you can introduce cooperation and things like that into this energy. So you can change things for the better. So don't underestimate your power with this. Not always, but probably 95% of the time you can change it for the better. The next card that we have is the Magician. I'm not even surprised this came up with how magical these conjunctions are. The Magician is all about getting in touch with magic, getting in touch with your power, with your will, with your mental sphere, controlling the elements, right? In a practical sense, the Magician is about gathering resources, using everything that's at your disposal to make things go into accordance with your will, with whatever your will is, knowing what your will is and acting on it, and using everything that you have available to you as a tool, be that literal physical resources, be it intellectual resources, be it your friends and family who are willing to help you, whatever it is that you can tap into to accomplish your will. That's what the Magician represents practically. And also it's a lot of creativity, a lot of ingenuity, making things work that wouldn't necessarily on their own. Like you find a way to make things work out through your creativity and through tapping into the resources that are available to you. And really digging in and looking at your resources. Sometimes with the Magician you have to look a little bit deeper. It's not necessarily always going to be something that's obviously a resource, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm communicating this correctly, but sometimes you have to dig a little deeper and figure out a way to make things happen. So there could be some things that you're overlooking that you need to look a little bit closer at and see it for really what it is. Okay, so I'll say it like that. With the Magician card, that's something that's coming up. So tying that to the Five of Wands and sort of disarming these negative situations, turning things into cooperation and working together instead. You know, think about that in terms with the Magician. Like you're the Magician with the situation. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to change it for the better? How are you going to shift things around? How are you going to make a way for things to work out? That's something to consider there. And the final card is the Moon. Cute bunny. It's important for me to say. With the moon, we have, once again, sort of this energy of finding your way through the darkness. The moon is the light that guides us in the nighttime. It's the light by which we see in the night. It's the psychic perception. It's the intuition. It's the divine feminine. It's the gnosis. It's the magic that guides our way. Think about you're walking in a nighttime environment. You're walking down a path in the night. You cannot see very far ahead. You cannot see clearly what's around you. But you can see enough that you're able to keep to the path. That's what the moon represents. It's that sort of magical, intuitive, spiritual guidance, whether that comes from within or from without. It could be signs and omens from your spirits, from your guides, but it could also just be your intuition and your inner voice. And it's an energy of, okay, I can't see everything, but I can see enough to take my next steps. And if you trust in that, if you believe in that, you're gonna keep to the path. You don't have to see everything. You just have to see what you're doing. That's what the moon card represents here. So once again, that ties perfectly with the magician, because the focus is on you. You're gathering resources. You're manifesting your will. You're changing things. You're making things happen. It's all about your energy. You don't know what's going to be going on with this Five of Wands. It could be positive. It could be negative. There could be a lot of potential for chaotic energy, for conflict. If left unchecked, if left alone, you do not know what's going to happen with this. But when you take the initiative, when you take action, when you're the magician, when you're that number one, you have the power, you have the control of things to a large degree. Not always 100%, but you have at least control over yourself and what you do. And that does have a power, that does have an influence. And it looks like with the moon showing up as the final card, that's really what's being highlighted. Keeping to your path, keeping to your lane, doing what you can do, doing what you know. And knowing also that following your intuition, following your path, following your truth, that is the path that's for you. It can never mislead you. Okay? So that's a really interesting message, probably very important to hear at this time for all of us. Now let's go ahead and pull a Starseed Oracle. Now I align myself with the Starseeds, the fairies, and all you beings of light in the cosmos. Please come forward now and communicate the truth to me through these cards so that I may be guided for the highest good of all. Thank you, and so mote it be. Please give us your divine guidance for this full moon, for the restarting of the Large Hadron Collider at CERN, for this conjunction of the Sun and Mercury, of the Moon and Pluto. Anything that we need to know or do or be aware of at this time for our highest good, greatest success and joy. Please give us your divine guidance now. Thank you, and so mote it be. Okay, so we get the card Earth Pulsing. Pulse of the Mother, slow down, time in nature. Those are the key words. A mysterious pulse is woven through all of life. The planet itself has a rhythm. You can see it in the seasons and the tides. In our world of artificial lighting, long working hours, and modern conveniences, it's easy for us to feel stuck and off kilter. It's time to reconnect with nature and surrender to the pulse of the earth. Earth pulsing is my favorite tool for surrendering to the rhythmic pulse of the mother and the entire universe. Today, many of us are disconnected from the land beneath us. Somewhere along the way, a severing happened. A moment when it became too painful to stay connected. We feel unsupported and as if we don't belong. We look to other people in the external world to fill the void of the connection, holding, and belonging once given to us by the earth. Taking, clutching, conquering, longing for others to receive us fully, as the mother once did. Forgetting that she's still here, waiting for us to remember and activate that part of us that longs to receive her embrace. When you consciously connect with the earth, a veil is lifted, and she opens up and receives you more fully. You're able to drink from her sweet waters and release what no longer serves you. Stagnant energy falls away, and you become connected to all things on the planet. Starseed Activation. I surrender to the pulse of the mother. May my heart beat in unison with her. So that's a really interesting card. It seems to be all about sort of grounding, centering, not only within ourselves, but reconnecting to the earth, reconnecting to nature, right? So there's an energy that's needed at this time. We need to ground. We need to connect back to nature. We need to connect back to the earth. And that makes a lot of sense with what's going on with the restarting of the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. Earth pulsing, the heartbeat of the earth, the Schumann resonance, connecting into the energy of the planet at this time will be very beneficial. And I feel not just for ourselves, but also for the planet. Like I was saying in the video about CERN, we really don't know the consequences of doing experiments like that. So it might be beneficial for us to reconnect to the earth at this time and send healing energy and loving energy to the planet, to the goddess, to the mother, right? That could be something that's being also brought up here, I feel. I'm actually seeing this reading in a different way now that I think about that, with the Five of Wands, chaotic energy with groups of people. Okay, let's think about that in terms of the LHC starting in the video that I just put out about CERN and what all of that theory and all of that stuff that I was saying in that video, how it can create this sort of unleashing of negative psychic energy on the masses who aren't prepared to deal with it. That sort of chaotic energy could also be what's going on here with the planet, with these large groups of people. Okay, so in terms thinking like that, we just have to be the magician and focus on ourselves, focus on our own energy, focus on our own mastery and our own power to emanate our path and walk our own path in the darkness, knowing what your steps are, following your intuition, following your path. And also maybe being a light for others. Maybe you are also carrying a torch down that path. Okay? Your intuition isn't meant to just guide you. Not always. Sometimes, you do get guidance for other people and you're supposed to share that and communicate that. And your magic is not just for you. Sometimes you're supposed to do magic for other people. Sometimes you're supposed to share your magic. Maybe even with the world. Maybe we are all supposed to be sending healing energy at the planet during this time. So think about that too. Do some grounding, do some meditation, do some earthing. Get out in nature, reconnect to the planet. See what you feel within yourself. Maybe you feel that you need to send some energy to the planet. Maybe you feel like you need to send some energy to a certain group of people. Okay, so whatever that is for you, just pay attention to it with this reading. And once again, with this full moon in particular. So that's going to be all for this reading. Hopefully you found it helpful and it can guide you in some way. If you would like to get in touch with me for a private reading, you can contact me through the methods below in the description box. If you would like to join my Patreon and get access to all of my occult lessons and video courses on higher magic, the link is down below in the description box for that as well. And I hope that you have a lovely full moon and are able to use these energies for your highest good and the highest good of the ones that you love. As always, until next time, Hail Hecate, hail to the witches, hail to the starseeds and the fairies, and blessed be.